Hello. Hi, everybody. I am happy to be here on a really nice Monday afternoon. People talking about, um, that they'd like to lose weight, that they'd like to be a smaller size. But I wanted to share with you today some concepts around body shape and why that's so important when we talk about body sculpting, and something that we really have to keep in mind when we're working with patients. Life changes, we change over time, and it's very likely that we're not going to stay the same over our lifetime. So when we're creating shape with body sculpting, one of the most important things to look at is the overall end result shape that we're trying to achieve. And Amanda will be joining us shortly and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it. But as a physician and as a scientist, one of the things that I really like to do is delve into the research behind why we do what we do and why others won't. And so when it came to body sculpting and adding that into our practice, I sort of looked into this field with the same sort of vigor and interest. And came to find out a lot about human, body shape. Hi there, Amanda. How are you?
Well, I'm good now that I'm not upside down and sideways, but
yeah. Yeah, I know it's always difficult to figure out how to record on some of these.
Okay, now
but this worked well last time.
Yeah.
So I was sharing with everybody that we're talking about body shape today and its importance when it comes to considering body shaping, body sculpting technologies, and why it's not just about size.
No, not at all. And sadly, my joke, I love that line, I wish I was as fat as I was the first time I thought I was fat.
Right?
Things change, who knew?
Yeah, things change. That's a guarantee in life for sure. I think this year has really taught us that for sure.
I'll say.
Yeah. So, I was sharing with everybody that I tend to sort of delve into every aspect of our practice, looking at sort of data behind things and the science behind things, and body sculpting is really no different. So, I've always found humans' sort of eye for beauty a very interesting idea. I mean, those concepts stand true whether you're looking at plastic surgery, whether you're looking at art, whether you're looking at photography. There are certain principles that hold true, and the same is true of body sculpting. Shape is super important.
Mm-hmm.
The human eye really looks at certain things as being attractive and beautiful, and certain other shapes and sort of proportions as not being so attractive.
Right.
And I think this goes back to our instincts for survival and procreation and so on and so forth. And so when you look at what the female ideal is, we often will talk to patients, whether we're doing CoolSculpting, whether we're doing body effects, whether we're doing Morpheus 8, that we're really trying to achieve a nice sort of hourglass shape.
Right.
And that there's a reason behind that, because when you look at all the studies done on human, female beauty and what's considered attractive, there's a real ideal hip to waist ratio that we look at. And that ideal hip to waist ratio is 0.7, which means that the hips should be a little bit wider and the waist is ideally about 3/4 the width of the hips, or 0.7 when you look at the ratio there. And that standard, or that ideal, stands true across most cultures and most societies, which I found interesting. Mm-hmm. And then I started looking at different sizes of models and whatnot, and it holds true regardless of the size of the model. The ideal is still 0.7. If you look at Marilyn Monroe, who was a real sex symbol in her time, but much larger than the ideals that we adhere to today, her hip to waist ratio was 0.68.
Right.
And then you look at someone like Kate Moss, super slim.
Right.
Slimmer than most average women today. Her hip to waist ratio was 0.69.
Like, you know that after this, I'm going to go and get a tape measure.
Right?
And then determine just how many cycles I need to do.
Right.
Flank, abdomen. It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Your anterior shape, you know, your waist is actually impacted by the flanks. We were talking about that last time. You had your flanks treated, and you noticed a change in the front, right? It seemed sort of cinched in.
I'm noticing that in the front when it was the back that I had treated.
Because there is a bit of tightening that happens with CoolSculpting, you know, a bit of cinching that happens, but it does, you know, you do see a bit of the flank anteriorly when you come to the front. So it is kind of fascinating, right?
Well, and I guess too, when we map somebody out, so when I'm mapping someone and I'm like, okay, you feel for their oblique muscles in the front.
Yeah.
That's abdomen, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of what's within this area. So yeah, your flank does wrap around.
Yeah, it does. It does. So you want to create that shape, and you know, if you place the applicator too high or too low, you're going to disrupt that ratio even subtly. And the thing with these treatments is they're permanent. Once you freeze that fat, once you heat that fat, once you get rid of those fat cells, they're gone for good, which is awesome.
Yay!
Yes. Gone for good, without surgery, without downtime, which is super amazing. But we want to leave you with a shape that you're going to, you know, whether you grow into it or whether you slim down some more, it's going to be appealing and it's going to look good, right?
Have that same ratio, right?
Totally.
And for me, I want to look like Superman.
Yep. That's right.
So we're going back to cave people days and, you know, picking a mate. You know, you're probably not going to pick the little scrawny guy that eats last to breed with.
Yeah.
Funny, right?
Yeah, it's sad to say, but there's lots of studies done on that, and it seems to correlate with status and our own sort of perception of success and attractiveness. Mm-hmm. So when we look at a male figure, we want to create more of a Superman shape for sure. Mm-hmm. And that there is an ideal shoulder to waist ratio too, which I found interesting. And ideally, the shoulders, you want them to be about 20 to 40% wider than the waist when you're looking at a male profile. So, you know, they've kind of quantified those things as well.
So it's good to know that it's not just the women that have these crazy, well, ideal expectations in terms of shape. It's men and women.
Yeah, it does kind of. And you know what happens is clothing manufacturers and whatnot also sort of make their clothing with that sort of ideal in mind. And so if you find that you're frustrated with trying to find pants that fit or find you know, dresses that fit or shirts that fit for men, oftentimes when we do body sculpting, they're usually like, you know what, I'm excited about wearing clothes again, and, you know, excited about going shopping again, because when I try things on, they fit, because our clothing manufacturers are manufacturing to one sort of standardization, mm-hmm. which is, you know, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it too, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, you know, I think of things like arms too. I notice as, you know, with getting older, you know, and I think menopause changes our shape dramatically. I know you talked about that before. That, things like, I feel like there's places in my body where I never used to carry weight, and now I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this all about? Or this, you know, those, which, again, are easily addressed with CoolSculpting.
They are. In fact, arms are one of the one of my most favorite places to have treated and see treated, because we all, most of us want to wear that tank top, right? We want to wear that short sleeved sort of outfit. And when you're feeling self-conscious, I mean, I've shared that story with my daughter countless times where I'm like driving, I've got my arms up here and she's like just looking. I think she was like 6 or something. And she's like looking and she just touches the side of my arm and she said, Mom, if you glued the side of your arm to the side, could you fly? And I'm like, oh.
So in this world, I can take you out.
I know. And it's so exciting that you can create tightening and improvement without surgery. Like those surgical treatments, you're left with a scar the length of the arm. And for some patients, that is an appropriate option because they've, worked hard and had that degree of weight loss. But for most of us who are just tend to store extra fat there, a cycle of CoolSculpting, some body effects is going to give you some tightening and give you that little confidence. I've had my arms treated with CoolSculpting and it's just so much nicer to wear, sleeveless clothes and tanks and stuff. I still have to kind of watch here because this is another area, this little, like you were pointing to the back, bra fat, but that anterior little pooch here.
This little chick cutlet.
Yeah, that's another area that, if you're wearing dresses, evening dresses especially, are a thing for me, and you get that. So that's a perfect place to treat with CoolSculpting. It works like anything. It's amazing. And perfect for, for special events and things like that if you plan ahead. Because you got to give 3 months to any of these treatments to have them really work, right? And in time for your event. So, shape is where it's at.
Yeah, and again, we talk about, because people will say, well, what if I gain weight, right? So I do all this, and because right now I'm living my best lifestyle, I'm eating right, I'm getting regular exercise, I'm drinking my water, I'm gonna, because I think we've all had those peaks and valleys in terms of how well we take care of ourselves. I know I certainly have, right?
Yes, totally.
It fluctuates, but I think that's a question I get oftentimes when I'm having consult with patients is, well, but what happens if I gain weight?
Yeah, if you gain weight, you're going to gain it uniformly over that shape we've created so that you maintain it, right? You maintain that shape. And so it's always going to be a more attractive silhouette than when we started, right?
And I think it's important for people to know too that, we have that, we sort of have the fat cells we're going to have by adolescence.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're removing them, and when we gain weight, they get bigger, and when we lose weight, they get smaller. So we're actually literally taking fat cells out of an area. If you gain weight, that's why it's going to hold that shape, right? Because you're going to have less cells in the midsection.
That's right, exactly. So we're actually removing the number of fat cells in a particular area. And if that's your genetic Achilles heel, where you just are shaped in a way where you have more fat cells in a particular area, we can help reduce the number in that area so that we modify that shape.
Right. So, people always talk of, if you look about, are you an apple? Are you a pear? I mean, I hate those terms, but, I'm clearly a pear, but then I have a girlfriend who's clearly an apple. Like she has legs for miles, but when she gains weight, it's always in the midsection.
So, yeah, you can remove the number of fat cells here. That tendency will be less.
You can sort of change that shape. I think the other thing that's interesting too is when we talk about shape, sometimes people will elect to have, say, tummy tucks or that mommy makeover thing. And sometimes, they'll do the whole thing, a bit of lipo and what have you. Sometimes they come and we see the odd patient that's had it only the front addressed, right?
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, shape is a bit weird.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it's not too uncommon. Or the thing is, they've had their surgery some time ago, and now things have changed, and they've put on some weight, and so because with surgery, oftentimes a very aggressive amount of fat is removed. the tendency is for fat gain to change their shape. And it's one of the reasons that I love the non-invasive, non-surgical options is that you're actually a little bit more judicious in the amount of fat cells that you're removing, so that when you have weight gain, which in my mind you have to think of as being inevitable, you're still going to maintain a good shape. So we're definitely going to get into that a little bit more next week. With respect to surgical versus, who's a good surgical candidate, because certainly there are some people for whom surgery is more important,
Totally.
more appropriate, I should say, and then there are others for whom they're like kind of in between. And so we'll give you some ideas and considerations to think about when you're looking at surgical options versus non-surgical options.
Yeah, that'll be good. So shape is where it's at.
Right? Where it's at.
It's not always about, trying to be that particular number, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's
numbers and sizes are so they change, right? That changes from year to year, what's in, what's out, but what never changes is that concept of what we find beautiful. So yeah.
Fabulous. Awesome.
Excellent. Well, great chatting with you again. And again, to our viewers, please feel free to message us either through our social media platforms or email us. We'd love to hear about your ideas and what you want to learn more about.
Awesome.
Okay.
Enjoy the sunshine. It looks pretty darn beautiful there today as well, hey?
Yes, we'll get a little sunshine and then it's going to get cold, I hear. So
that's okay. I need the vitamin D.
There you go.
All right. We'll talk.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.